على سيدنا محمد خاتم النبيين وإمام المرسلين وعلى آل الطيبين الطاهرين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. قال جل وعلا في كتاب المبين: وإذا أخذنا ميثاق بني إسرائيل لا تعبدون إلا الله بالوالدين إحسانا وذي القربى واليتامى والمساكين وقولوا للناس حسنا. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Surah Al-Baqarah, talks about our relationship with other people and the community and what He took from the Bani Israel, the children of Israel, as a covenant. And I want to base the next, inshallah, 10 minutes or so on this topic, and especially one of the famous narrations of the Prophet ﷺ in regard to serving other people. One thing that separates human beings from animals, en masse, that is, not all animals of course, is the fact that human beings have the capacity and ability, both spiritually and physically, to care and help other people. One thing you see in the animal kingdom often is that animals are oft selfish in regard to themselves. Their capacity as animals is restricted to serving themselves or their immediate surroundings only, i.e. to only a certain extent. The irony is, these days, human beings have lowered themselves to a level whereby we've lost the very thing that makes us human beings. And I want to talk about what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about that. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala discusses Bani Israel in the Quran, there are four or five things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala declares that they must do. The first is to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the worship of Allah Jalla wa'ala is objective. It should lead to other things. Allah, immediately after saying that do not associate partners to Him or do not worship except Allah, He states وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا, and be kind, good, and have a perfect way of interacting with your parents. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says وَذِي الْقُرْبَى وَالْيَتَامَى وَالْمَسَاكِينَ, and those people who are close to you. Then He mentions the impoverished people, and this is the kind of the point that I'm going to make today will be based on this. And then the last thing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala states is وَقُولُوا لِلنَّاسِ حُسْنًا, which means with people be of excellent character. In this day and age, in England specifically, and United Kingdom further, we don't have problems really financially. We don't have massive financial austerity here in this country, whereby people literally can't feed themselves. A poverty that struck many parts of the world, many times over in the last century, has not really reached these shores. When we talk about poverty here, we talk about people not being able to often afford an iPhone or a smartphone, something, or they can't get their takeaways anymore and they have to cook their food at home. But to the level that we really understand poverty in our tradition, we haven't faced that type of poverty in this country. But the poverty and depravity that we have in this country is the poverty of the spiritual self, the esoteric dimension for people. People don't have a relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I truly believe that the word masakeen and yatama refers more in this country to people that have a spiritual connection that's been severed almost with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His religion. I want to just spend around 10 minutes on servitude. Servitude is one of the greatest traditions of the Muslim. I want to begin with a story before I mention the hadith. And this is a hadith, this is a story not only about servitude, but about how to treat other people. There was a famous man once in the subcontinent, possibly India, a man of God that was once with his student, and a Hindu man came to him. And he was a great Muslim leader, a spiritual man. And this Hindu man, he came to him and he had a lot of respect for him. In India, if you know that many people of God are respected by even Hindus and people of other religions. And when he came to him, he had brought with him a gift from his household, which was a traditional dish made mainly from milk. And he said, Shaykh, I've brought you this, my wife has cooked this for you, and it was with, I know you only eat from only from halal income and certain types of food, and I can assure you that this is completely halal, and we spent time on this just to honor you. So the Shaykh took the dish from him, he ate whatever was in the dish and gave him the dish back. When the man left, after greeting the Shaykh, he left in a very happy state. The students that were sitting around the Shaykh said that, Shaykh, why would you have taken that food from him, knowing that you're fasting, and you inevitably broke your fast by eating the food that he provided for you? And what he said in reply was amazing. He was fasting nafil, it wasn't Ramadan. He said, when you break your fast, how do you repay, how do you make it up? They said, by just making qada, you break your fast. If it's nafil especially, the jurists are unanimous that you just make it up. There's no sin, as long as there's a valid reason for it. Unlike Ramadan. They said that's how you do it. And he said, what's the qada? What's the repayment for breaking somebody's heart? And they said, we don't know. He said, if I had not taken that man's food and eaten it, he would have been in a worse off state than if I were to break my fast in front of Allah Jalla wa'ala. For he doesn't need my fast. And that's very, very important, in that these people really thought how their words would affect other people. The Prophet ﷺ, in one famous hadith, mentions the greatest level of the mu'min. And the reason I'm particular with my words is, we often recognize a believer to be somebody who prays nawafil, prays tahajjud, makes dhikr, a lot of dhikr, reads Quran. But that's not the heaviest thing on the Day of Judgment. It's categorical that the heaviest thing on the Day of Judgment on the scales is husn al-khuluq, is excellent character. And this hadith exemplifies that particular, or clearly demonstrates what the true believer is. The Prophet ﷺ stated, "Habbu an-nasi ila Allah anfa'uhum." In one narration, "Anfa'uhum lin-nas." The most beloved people to God are the ones most beneficial to other people. Most beneficial to other people. And then the Messenger of God ﷺ continues to kind of highlight all the different aspects. And he begins by saying that, and the greatest action, the most beloved action to God, is that a person bring about happiness to another believer. In several different narrations, the same word is used, surur, which means joy, that he leaves his brother full of joy. And then the Messenger of Allah continues, alayhi salatu wasalam, and he states, to help somebody in need, a brother of yours in need, is better than making i'tikaf, seclusion in the masjid for 40 days. And then he said, alayhi salatu wasalam, that he who controls his anger, God will cover his sins. All of these things are related to other people, not to the person himself, because people's anger is when it manifests itself, affects other people. Then he said, alayhi salatu wasalam, and he who sets out to help his brother and does not return until the need of his brother is fulfilled, for he will be the one who God will make his feet steadfast on the Day of Judgment, meaning he will be like a rock on the Day of Judgment in the time of tribulation and calamity. And then the Prophet ﷺ finished by saying, وَسُوءُ الْحُسْنِ سُوءُ الْخُلُقِ, and bad manners, or the worst of manners, is like, it destroys iman, or a person's belief, or a person's actions, like honey is destroyed by mixing it with vinegar. Now, if you look at all of the points of the hadith, all of them demonstrate people's service to other people. There's a very famous narration, and I want to introduce it with something that's very common. Often people come to us and they say, I've committed a sin, a very bad sin. Now, sins have their own degrees, and to be honest, every day gets worse and worse. for all of us. But we constantly or generally think, and Shaykh Burhan will cover that topic, how will we attain the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So a man comes to the Prophet ﷺ and he's committed something that he doesn't relate what it is, but he states that it's aswa, like the worst thing he can do. He could have been murdered. Can we fix this somehow? I don't know which mic it is. He doesn't tell the Prophet ﷺ what it is. So it could be zina, it could be murder. And he asks the Prophet ﷺ a question. He says, "O Messenger of God, I've committed a sin, a very, very bad sin, al-kabira. How would I repay or receive God's mercy in regard to that?" Now again, we generally would think if you went to somebody and asked her to be forgiven by God, say, make tawbah. But tawbah, how does it manifest? Does it mean I sit at home and I try to cry, and if I can't, that tawbah is not accepted? Does it mean that I pray a lot of nawafil? How are we forgiven by God? The Prophet ﷺ asked him if his parents were alive. He said, "Are your parents alive?" He said, "They've passed away." He said, "Do you have any elderly relative in your family?" He said, "My auntie is still alive." He said, "Serve her, for if you serve her, then God will forgive you for whatever you've done." And the underlining point in that narration is that the quickest way to God's forgiveness is in serving other people. The greatest people on the Day of Judgment under the shade of Allah, they're not 7, they're many more than 7. 7 are only specified in the hadith. If you look at them very, very carefully, are people who served other people. In a very famous narration, I'm going to finish with this narration and we're going to continue to the next talk inshallah, of the Prophet ﷺ is a discussion between Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his servant. So this could be any one of us. And this is a very impacting hadith. If you want to know what your discussion will go like on the Day of Judgment, just listen to this hadith and see if any of us really kind of fit into the person who is saved or the person who is in trouble on the Day of Judgment. عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه قال قال رسول الله عليه الصلاة والسلام إن الله عز وجل يقول يوم القيامة, God Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say on the Day of Judgment, يا ابن آدم مرضت فلم تعدني. Allah says to his servant on the Day of Judgment, I became ill, I was ill and you did not come to visit me. So a person says, Ya Allah, he says, Anta Rabbul Alameen, Anta Rabbul Alameen, you are the Lord of the worlds. When were you ill that I did not come to visit you? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to him that, do you not know, Ama علمت أن عبدي فلان مرض فلم تعده? Did you not know that a person in your community was ill? They needed help or assistance and you did not visit them. And did you not know him that you visited him? Did you not know that if you had visited him, you would have found me with him? And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala states, Ya ibn Adam, O son of Adam, I asked you for food and you did not feed me. He will say, Oh Lord, Anta Rabbul Alameen, you are the Lord of the worlds. Allah doesn't eat, Allah is transcendent. How would I have fed you? He says, Allah Jalla wa Ala, did you not know that my servant so-and-so asked you for food and you fed him not? For if you had fed him, you would have found that I was with him. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala states, Ya ibn Adam, O son of Adam, I asked you to give me drink and you did not give me drink. He will say, Oh my Lord, Anta Rabbul Alameen, you are the Lord of the worlds, transcendent, beyond these needs. And Allah says, my servant so-and-so asked you to give him to drink and you gave him not to drink. Had you given him to drink, you would have surely found me with him. I began with this discussion or this reminder with the fact that we don't have masakin in this country like we understand the word masakin or yatama or fuqara to be. We have a faqr, a poverty of a spiritual state, and a maskana, and we're impoverished spiritually. How have we helped ourselves and the community with these spiritual problems And how will we answer God on the Day of Judgment?